Well, good evening. Once again, it is Saturday night, probably around 7 o'clock, November the 23rd, journal number 234, T+235. It's interesting. Transplantation, especially bone marrow transplantation, stem cell transplantation, is not new. It's new compared to the history of medicine, but it's fairly recent, especially as it's gaining in popularity. So there's still a lot that isn't known about it. And most people, what they do know is probably incorrect. So that's one of the reasons I was so excited about the opportunity to speak the other night at this meeting on cancer awareness, resources, and engagement. It's important that people understand, because there are things that are required for transplantation, like blood donations, like platelet donations, especially stem cell donations, that make it all possible. And when you're a transplant patient, especially a stem cell bone marrow transplant patient, then you go through literally buckets of blood and platelets, especially when your hemoglobin drops to practically nothing. So it was important to me to tell that story. But it's also interesting because in order to get the transplant, you have to become 100% immunocompromised so that your body doesn't naturally attack the donor stem cells when they're introduced. That's an interesting phenomenon. And right now I'm almost 8 months into the process post-transplant, 235 days. And I'm still 100% immunocompromised. So going out in a large crowd or being with a lot of people, especially at this time of the year, is difficult because flu season is upon us. A lot of people are wandering around coughing and sniveling and coughing and sneezing, what have you. And for a normal person with a normal immune system, it's like, so what's your point? But the point is, for somebody like me, it's deadly. So what you would have seen had you been there last night, up until the time I spoke, is this, me doing my best Darth Vader impersonation. But when it came time for me to speak, I had to go ahead and obviously remove the mask. Otherwise, the sound quality would have been horrible and nobody would have been able to understand me anyway. Not sure anybody did in the first place. No, all kidding aside, the presentation went well. It seems like the more important the presentation is, the more I stress. And the more I stress, the harder I work. The harder I work, the better the presentation. And that was the case last night. I was very fortunate that my presentation was followed by an oncologist who spoke about CAR T-cell therapy, about all kinds of breakthroughs, about the number of cancer drugs just this year that were approved by the FDA, more than double what was approved just 8 years ago, the number of drugs approved just 8 years ago. Plus, she did talk a little bit about the breakthroughs that they're making in other countries around the world when it comes to this kind of research, particularly in Israel. So the presentation went especially well. But the thing that I wanted to share with you this evening is an observation. You know, obviously, we've been doing this for a long time together. The journal is 234 episodes old, and I've shared a lot of observations. But this is an interesting one coming from somebody who's 100% immunocompromised, who has a weak immune system. And you don't have to have a transplant to have your immune system weakened. I mean, there are all kinds of different factors that can enter into that equation. But after the presentation was finished and after the meeting concluded, this group dispersed. They all dispersed to another social room in which all kinds of goodies, snacks, pastries, fruit, and antioxidant, cancer, known cancer fighting nuts, all kinds of different stuff. I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to go into any of that. But what I will tell you is this. I had the mask on until I went up to speak. Took the mask off, went back to my seat, put the mask back on. My host was kind enough to announce, and I knew a lot of people in this group, by the way, countless people, as a matter of fact, and I haven't seen them in almost a year or over a year, and it felt good to be amongst them. As a matter of fact, I started my presentation by saying that it was only fitting that I would be with them in this new year that started, this new lifetime that started for me on April 2nd with my transplant. A second lifetime of new firsts, and it was good to be with all of them. But he did make a point of saying to everybody, no handshaking, no hugging. When it came to me, that you could bump elbows, which I got to tell you, when you're doing that with more than a couple, more than 100 people, it looks really bizarre. Looks like you're doing the Macarena. But we walked into the social hall, and I was watching people as they went to the buffet tables, and I literally recoiled. I mean, I literally backed up, and I could feel my body tense, and I could feel my hands go up in front of me like I was actually going to defend myself in a fight. And the reason was there were people in the room who are either getting over the flu, just brewing a cold, that may be ill, that were coughing, that were sneezing, and they were all over the food and touching one pastry and then putting it down, touching another pastry and then putting it down. And I was watching this, and it was almost like it was a Fellini movie. It was surreal watching what was going on. And as I was backing out, I wouldn't have even thought about this a year ago, 2 years ago. I would have been right in there with everybody else. And then I would have been like everybody else, wondering how come I got sick. Because while there was a big dispenser for Purell in a corner of the room, I didn't see anybody go over there to use it. I mean, I didn't go over there to use it because I carry my own bucket of Purell with me and antiseptic wipes and all of that other stuff. I was never a germaphobe before, but I can understand why Howie Mandel's the way he is. I really can. It's scary, especially when you realize that for most people, when exposed, they're just going to wind up having a sniffle or a cold or a sneeze or congestion in their chest. Me, I'm going to wind up back in Duarte at Helford Hospital as an inpatient because my body's not equipped to fight any of that stuff off. So my takeaway from all of that was when you're out amongst a group of people, hopefully people that you know, but especially if you're out amongst a group of people you don't know, if you don't know where they've been or where they've been doing or what's going on in their lives, and they didn't wash their hands in front of you or Purell in front of you, and they reach for something on a buffet table plate, stay away from the plate. Control yourself. Back away. Back away from the table. Because it could be deadly. There is one other thing, and I'll close with that. If you're going to wash your hands, and this is really funny because it's the most hygienic thing you can do. The easiest way to prevent colds and flu and other kinds of symptoms is wash your hands in warm soapy water, get in between your fingers, because that's where most of the bugs live, in the creases in your hands, and warm soapy water, recite the alphabet. That's how long it should take you to wash your hands properly. And with that piece of important instruction, I'll leave you for the evening. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.